Welcome in to the final regular season Victory Monday edition of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. Except for one more day, it is just me, Fulton Caster, in charge. For those of you expecting to see Jake LeBon, hear Jake LeBon for the first time in a week, well, I am sorry to disappoint you. Jake will more than likely not be with us today. His travel plans got delayed just a bit. So Jake will be another day off as he wraps up his travel back here to the capital city. So for one more day, I am in charge. No, this is not a takeover of the show. My authoritarian regime will end. Unlike other people, there will be a peaceful transition of power that I will not fight. I will give up my power once Jake is back. Happily to do so, which will be tomorrow. But for one more day, it is just myself and at times my good friend Kyle Manthe joining me for Mic'd Up today. But we have a lot to get to on this Victory Monday edition of the show. The Chiefs beat the Raiders. They finished the regular season at 14-3, tying the franchise record for most wins in the regular season at 14. Still waiting to try and get the elusive 15th win. Hopefully that comes sooner rather than later, because 15-2 would be a pretty good mark. But the Chiefs finished the regular season at 14-3 with a pretty stress-free win over the Raiders. It wasn't dramatic, did not have a lot of highlights or sparks or explosiveness to it, but it was a good, clean win for the Chiefs against the Las Vegas Raiders. And the most important part of that win, they came out relatively healthy. And moreover, the Chiefs have secured the number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs, which means this isn't a game week. The Chiefs are not playing this week. We have no Chiefs game to preview for you this week because they are on bye. We will hear from head coach Andy Reid today. That'll be the only media availability for the Chiefs coming up this week. We'll hear from head coach Andy Reid later on in today's show. Then they will go dark the rest of the week. We will then hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, the coordinators and company, all coming up next week as the Chiefs have secured the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. We will go around the NFL later on today's show. I will break down all the playoff seedings, what happened in a wild weekend in the NFL, who shook out where, who made the playoffs, who didn't, and what matchups we have coming up on what the NFL dubs Super Wild Card Weekend coming up. I'll give you just a little bit of a glance at what is going on there as we go around the NFL. We have a national title game tonight, Georgia and TCU, the Frogs versus the Bulldogs. Either Georgia's going to repeat as national champions, or we will have our first champion, Big 12 national champion in the CFP era, and the first Big 12 national champion in football since 2005. We'll preview that matchup between Georgia and TCU later today. We're going to look at the college hoops landscape and KU and K-State's big wins on the court. We'll talk a bit about KU, but I can't hold this information back all the way to later in the show. Your Kansas State Wildcats are not just now ranked in the AP Top 25 poll. Your Kansas State Wildcats in year 1 under Jerome Tang, after a big overtime win over Baylor, are the number 11 team in the country. The dream season for K-State, the dream beginning of the season for K-State continues, and we will get to all that coming up later in the show today. We'll play a little overreaction, proper reaction, and then coming up later, so not now, I'll let you know when. But coming up later in today's show, I got a pair of K-State tickets to give away to their matchup against Oklahoma State coming up tomorrow night at Bramlage Coliseum. You want to see your 11th ranked Cats? You want to see the Jerome Tang era? You want to see Marquise Noel, who is hotter than any basketball player that I've seen as of late on that court right now? I'm going to have a pair of tickets to give away coming up later in the show. So be listening. I will let you know when to call in and try and win that pair of Kansas State tickets. And as always, you can join in on the show on our Big Outsiders text line, 785-272-9429, or we are live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. Sports on 5 is our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe if you haven't already. We would greatly appreciate it. Then you can watch the live stream of the show. It's another way to get involved. And you can also get involved in the comments section of our YouTube live stream as well. Just a pair of ways to get involved on this Monday afternoon edition of Mic'd Up with just me, Fulton Caster, for one more time. Jake, like I said, we'll be back tomorrow. But we begin today's edition of Mic'd Up with the Victory Monday, as we love to do it around here. The Chiefs beat the Raiders 31-13 in probably the most stress-free game of the year. It wasn't exciting. Like, there wasn't fireworking displays of offense. Like, the Chiefs' offense was efficient. They got the job done. They scored 31 points. But it wasn't as if they scored those 31 points, did all those various things, as Patrick Mahomes was slinging the rock around the arm. I mean, Patrick Mahomes barely broke 200 passing yards. Patrick Mahomes had 27 passing yards in the second half. And that wasn't because Mahomes was playing bad or the Chiefs were playing bad. It's the game script just called for run the football, burn the clock, go home. And that's what the Chiefs did. That is what they accomplished in that win over the Las Vegas Raiders on Saturday afternoon. With the win, the Chiefs locked up the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs at 14-3. So they will be on bye this week. And then they will face one of 4 potential opponents, depending on how the playoff matchups shake out, coming up on next week. And then we'll know next week, do they play Sunday or Saturday? Because that's usually how it breaks down on divisional weekend, then going into championship weekend, and yada, yada, yada. So for now, the Chiefs will not play this week. So again, I'm so sorry. There's no Chiefs game for us to preview, and you will not get to see Patrick Mahomes Gray Shore Television coming up this week. But the important parts of this that I want to discuss are the Chiefs came out of the game relatively healthy. Frank Clark did leave the matchup against the Raiders with a groin injury. I believe Andy Reid described it as a groin strain. He was pulled out of the game. I don't know if it was a more important game or earlier in the season if Frank would have tried to play through it, or if they just took it a lot easier because they were in full control of the game versus the Raiders, knowing you have the bye week, get more rest. But that is that important part that I talked about last week. And I even talked about Brendan Rosinski on our instant reaction show, which you can watch back to that and also always see the live streams of those on this very YouTube channel, Sports on 580. Another great reason to subscribe and keep an eye on the channel. Is the best part of the number 1 seed. The most important part of the number 1 seed is the bye. It is the rest. Because the Chiefs don't have any catastrophic injuries. No guys that are like on IR. You want them quickly and rapidly to come back. But you got a lot of dinged up players. L'Jarius Sneed played in the game against the Raiders, but that hip bothered him at times. He nearly re-injured the hip and trying to make a great play against Devontae Adams. So his hip now has 2 weeks to get better. It is an extra bit of time to heal. Joe Thuney's been playing on a bum ankle for like half the year. Joe Thuney gets more time to rest up that ankle. Frank Clark and his groin injury that he just picked up in this game against the Raiders, he gets extra time to get that to heal, because as much as we have always commented on Frank Clark and discussed our disappointments of his play, he's had a good season. Frank has done what he needs to have done on the contract he's on with the way he needs to play. Like, Frank Clark's having a good year. He's actually an important piece to this defense. He gets more time to get healthy. McCole Hardman suffered that injury setback and couldn't play. He'll get healthy. Sky Moore couldn't play due to the laceration on his hand. He gets healthy. So the Chiefs will have a chance to put all 6 of their wide receivers on the field. Everyone gets an opportunity to get healthier, which is the biggest key. The NFL season is 17 games long. Everyone picks up injuries and dings and nicks and scrapes that are hard to deal with. That is where the number 1 seed is so important. I remember when we were dealing with all this number 1 seed talk and what the NFL was going to do, there was the really, I think at this point, proven poor reporting for Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. That discussion of maybe the 1 seed and the 2 seed, the 1 seed would get to pick home field or the bye, and the 2 seed would get the other result, which if that would have happened, you take the bye 10 out of 10 times because you need the rest. Home field is great. Being able to play in front of your home fans and when you have a home atmosphere like Arrowhead Stadium is great. It truly is. The bye is infinitely more important because you need rest after the slog that is the NFL regular season. You need the rest. And more importantly, every game you play, no matter how confident you are that you're going to win, every game you play comes with it a chance to lose and be knocked out of the playoffs. You now play one less game. That is one less chance for you to have a bad game and slip up. That's one less chance for something wacky to happen and you lose. That is one less chance you are taking to slip up en route to your ultimate goal, which is the Lombardi Trophy and winning a Super Bowl. So the fact that the Chiefs locked up this 1 seed is immense. It is amazing, and it is so important. That's huge. The other thing that I think is really, really positive coming out of this game against the Raiders, the defense looked good. And we can have all the discussions we want about, are the Raiders really trying? Were they mailing it in? Were they just in full, Cancun on 3 mode? Whatever. This is a Raiders team that just last week put up 34 points on the 49ers. Like, you can't tell me in a week's worth of time they tried to stop playing football. Now, I think there's a level to the Chiefs kind of knew more about it, and Jarrett Stidham was on tape, so it was easier to try and stop what the Raiders were wanting to do. At the same time, the Chiefs defense just played well. The pass rush played well. The complementary pass rush was on point. Chris Jones picked up 2.5 sacks. Chris Jones is tied his career high with 15.5 sacks this year. Just an absurd monster season from Chris Jones. He played well. George Karlaftis did some good things. Mike Dana did some good things. Nick Bolton had 16 tackles in this game. With his 16 tackles, Nick Bolton broke Derek Johnson's franchise record for the most tackles in a single season, as Nick Bolton had 180. Nick Bolton, in his second year, now holds the franchise record because he's a tackling machine. Patrick Mahomes, even in a game you kind of go, he broke Drew Brees' NFL record for most combined rushing and passing yards in a season. So, there were positives to take out of it. The performance was good. It's just nothing to, I guess, write home about. But the Chiefs also did what they needed to do. They needed to get a win. They finally, for the first time this year, really, at least since the Cincinnati game, controlled their own destiny. And they took that opportunity and they ran with it. And now they are your number 1 seed in these AFC playoffs. They will get a home game in the divisional round, no matter who they play. And then either go to the neutral site for the AFC Championship game against Buffalo, or any other person that comes and needs to fight for the AFC title has to go through Arrowhead. Which means there's a chance the Chiefs extend their record and for the 5th straight season host the AFC Championship game. It's a little sad if that streak gets broken because SB played at a neutral site, but that's the right call if they play Buffalo. It's the right call. But if they play anyone else for the AFC title, if they get that far, the Chiefs, for breaking their own record, a 5th straight season, would host the AFC title game. It's absurd. It's absurd what they've been doing, and they've been doing it by just performing so exceptionally well. The game against the Raiders just was a complete game, top to bottom, and showed you some wrinkles in the team. Also showed them playing with their food, as they did the little ring around a rosy play that should have scored a touchdown if not for a phantom hold, which also learned in postgame that play is called Snow Globe, to which Andy Reid said it came out of reindeer personnel, which I can't lie, it just brought me so much joy. It's just so much joy. Was also the ultimate Chiefs were playing with their food moment when they decided to bust that out in that game. Was just like, okay, they're not taking the Raiders seriously and are just messing around. But that play highlighted an important piece of this Chiefs team going into the postseason. Kadarius Toney looks good and he looks healthy. Another reason the bye is important. Toney can rest those hamstrings. Because you need Kadarius Toney healthy. He's now an important piece to this because he has a dimension this team does not often have. Isaiah Pacheco didn't get a lot of carries yet again, but when he got them, he looked great, and he adds that different dimension to the team. The Chiefs are in a great position heading into the playoffs, coming off of their win against the Las Vegas Raiders. The win was just showing that this defense is starting to really click. I know we can get all worried after the Denver game, after they get 24 points to Denver and all those different things. I think first game and our head coach can change some things up. Plus, the Broncos did play well against the Chargers, but, the Chargers also were definitely not trying out there. But overall, there were some positives to take away in the fact that the Chiefs did not suffer any major injuries. The offense looked in sync, looked good. and the defense played exceptionally well. Because to me, that defense is the key part of most of these things going forward. The other part for the Chiefs, they played a clean game offensively in terms of no turnovers, which is always key and always huge. There's going to be a lot to digest going forward, a lot to discuss, a lot to break down. We'll look into some of the different things for the full length of the playoff run coming up this week. Since we don't have an actual specific game to break down for the Chiefs this week, we'll take a little bit of a broader look at different pieces of this offense, pieces of this defense, and kind of go day by day and look at what parts of the team are important and how they will impact this hopeful, very deep playoff run that can wind up with the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl and getting Patrick Mahomes his second Super Bowl title and just by the age of 27. It would be fantastic, it would be amazing. But no matter what, Chiefs fans, take a load off. You can watch a weekend of NFL playoffs and not have to stress for even a second, because your team is just resting and relaxing because they earned it by winning 14 games in the regular season. We'll take a time out here on My Depth. Coming up next, we'll recap the weekend with our weekend takeaways and fails. Time for weekend takeaways and fails here on Mic'd Up, and I'm bending the rules ever so slightly because my biggest fail, part of it technically comes today, which, isn't the weekend. It's NFL head coaching decisions, mainly the Houston Texans and Arizona Cardinals. They're my takeaway and my fail combined in one. Because they're idiots. The Houston Texans yesterday, following their victory over the Indianapolis Colts, that cost them the number 1 overall pick by beating the Colts on a touchdown and 2-point conversion with 50 seconds left. The Chicago Bears are on the clock. They are your number 1 overall pick. Houston is number 2. The Texans fired Lovie Smith, which furthered my opinion and my thing I said last year, which was Lovie Smith is only being hired for a 1-year job. And the Texans aren't serious. The Texans have fired back-to-back 1-year head coaches. They've had 4 head coaches, if you include interims, in 3 years. They're an unserious franchise. I don't know, do I think Lovie Smith was the answer? Probably not. But at the same time, why'd you hire him in the first place then? What the hell are you doing? It's ridiculous. It's why bad teams stay bad, which then brings me even more so to our good friends, the Arizona Cardinals. They officially announced just earlier this morning that head coach Cliff Kingsbury has been fired. Cliff Kingsbury no longer has a job. He has been fired and relieved of his duties as head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And GM Steve Keim has resigned. Basically, they gave Keim the option to, you can either resign yourself or we're announcing we're firing you. Just a year after they gave Cliff Kingsbury a massive extension through 2027. Just a year after they gave an extension to Steve Keim. Just a year after they gave Kyler Murray his big extension. Your head coach is fired. You're paying him money. Your GM is resigning, so you're probably not paying him money. And your quarterback, before he got hurt, still wasn't looking great. Plus, there was a whole debacle with the homework clause. There's a reason bad teams stay bad. The Arizona Cardinals now are going to have their 4th new head coach in 7 years. Bruce Arians retired and then, of course, went to Tampa Bay afterwards. But Bruce Arians left that team, and they have been in shambles since. They can't figure it out. And it's their own fault because they're not being serious about the process. But no, that's what I've learned. I rarely am going to root for guys to have their jobs taken away. Was never rooting for Cliff Kingsbury to get fired. That is a man's job. I just didn't think it was the job he should have had. He was not fit for the job. Now he can go be an offensive coordinator somewhere in college. He can be the head coach somewhere at a G5 team where maybe he can actually be more successful and be more built for the job. But we always say it. This is why bad teams stay bad. Bad teams stay bad because their upper level management and their ownership don't know what the hell they're doing. And that's what it is. We now have 5 teams with NFL head coaching openings. We'll see how they get filled. We'll see who gets the job. The Broncos are the ones who have been so far requesting interview access to teams. But the Broncos, the Colts, the Cardinals, the Texans, a bunch of teams on the board to try and decide their head coaches going forward. But I don't know if any of them are going to get it right because all those teams are run pretty damn poorly. We're going to take another time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, we'll go around the NFL. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. From the Big O Terrace text line out of the 316, you can't build a team when you're firing a coach after 1 year. But Belichick or Andy Reid can turn around either of those teams within a year. They probably couldn't even get them to an 8-9 record in the first year. Exactly. I have said this at length on this program. Except for very rare situations, I'm not a 1-year head coach guy. I don't believe in firing coaches at any sport really after one season, because you can't build anything in 1 year. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule. I think Nathaniel Hackett should have been fired in this first year because he clearly couldn't cut it. Like, Nathaniel Hackett should never had the job. You watched him halfway through the year, and he didn't know what he was doing. I don't know if he'll ever get a head coaching opportunity again, but you watch Nathaniel Hackett coach, he doesn't know what he's doing. I would have been in favor of firing Josh McDaniels after 1 year, but that's because I never thought he should have been head coach ever again. Like, he failed so badly round one with Denver. And then, I'm sorry, the only success that Josh McDaniels had at an offensive coordinator, he had Tom Brady as his quarterback. Like, even last year with Mac Jones, the Patriot offense wasn't that great. It was better than what the Patriots put on the field this year, but I mean, it wasn't elite. So, I mean, those are exceptions to the rule, but like, if you're going to hire Lovie Smith, why hire him to be a one-and-done head coach? I don't get this. I don't like one-and-done head coaches. I think it's just a poor way to build a football team, and it just isn't the way to do things. Because it doesn't give them a time to build anything. But, like with everything, there are exceptions to the rules. So at times, I might agree with certain decisions about different things and going with the idea that they will reign head coaches. But it's just, you have to, for the most part, give guys an opportunity to actually build something. You have to. It's the way that things should be done. Because if you fire them after 1 year, then you're just, especially understanding the situation too. Some guys walk into a terrible situation. It's like, what do you want them to do? If the idea was that Lovie Smith needed to coach this team better to get a second season, what the hell was he supposed to do? He had Davis Mills, a guy in his second year at quarterback that didn't show much last year, showed a little bit at the end, but not much. A defense that's really bad. No weapons at wide receiver. Got lucky with Dameon Pierce being the running back you drafted because at least he was good. I don't know. It's weird. It's strange, but like we say, it's why bad teams stay bad. It's just why it happens. It is what it is. We're going to go around the NFL to wrap up this noon hour of Mic'd Up here. And if you have any thoughts as we go around the NFL, of course, you can join in on that Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or in the comments section of our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com, Sports on 580 is our YouTube channel. Pop in, give us a subscribe. You can watch the show and comment as we go today. But as we go around the NFL, the playoffs have arrived, my friends. The seeds are all set. We know what every team is, and we know the first 6 matchups that are going to be played on Super Wild Card Weekend coming up this weekend. We're going to begin in the AFC as the seeds fell. The Miami Dolphins won a horrendous game against the Jets. Listen, I'm happy Skylar got another start. I'm happy Skylar Thompson went from a guy that I honestly didn't know if he was going to be drafted to being a 7th-round pick to being a preseason darling to getting a roster spot, and now has gotten an opportunity to get some run in these games. With him leading them to a win, they broke their 5-game losing streak. But it was an 11-6 game. It was 9-6 when everything was said and done. And then a safety on the final play of the game ended things to make it 11-6. But, oh, God, it wasn't pretty. Skylar Sampson finished 20 of 31 for 152 yards. No picks, no turnovers. So, I mean, Skylar did the part he mainly needed to do, which was don't turn the ball over. But just a horrid game was Jets and Dolphins. But with that win, they set themselves up. And when that was coupled by a New England Patriots team that fell just short trying to beat the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins are your 7th seed coming up in the AFC playoffs. The Steelers won as well, but because the Miami Dolphins won, the Steelers could not get in. But Death taxes Mike Tomlin's team finishing above 500. The Steelers finished 9-8, and somehow Mike Tomlin willed that terrible team to a 9-8 record. Just a tremendous job. Well done by Mike Tomlin. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the crap out of the Baltimore Ravens, which should happen because they were starting Anthony Brown at quarterback. So we avoid the very stupid coin flip scenario to decide home field in that game. We don't need to worry about it. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars on Saturday night secured the AFC South title as they defeated the Tennessee Titans. So the Jacksonville Jaguars go from the number 1 overall pick to winning their division in just 1 year's worth of time. Tremendous turnaround by Doug Peterson, that coaching staff, and, of course, quarterback Trevor Lawrence. So in the AFC, we have these following matchups coming up this weekend. And I'll give you an early thought on what each one should be. The Dolphins will visit the Buffalo Bills in our 2-7 matchup. That's going to be a bad game and a bloodbath. No offense to Miami. It's probably Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson, and you're facing a very good Bills team. Probably a bloodbath, as all 2-7s usually are. The Ravens will go visit the Cincinnati Bengals. That one is all dependent on Lamar Jackson's health. Lamar Jackson has not practiced since December 4th. If Lamar Jackson plays, that Ravens-Bengals game gets fun. Gets fun real fast. If not, the Bengals will probably steamroll and it'll be another blowout of game. And then we have what could be the best wild card weekend game. We get Chargers at Jaguars. Weirdly enough, I think that's the best game of wild card weekend. Like, the Chargers are kind of figuring some things out, though. Like, they lost to the Broncos, but again, they weren't trying. So, like, that doesn't matter. But the Chargers get to face the Jags. The Jags are playing well. Their defense is figuring some things out, and that offense can be fun. So I think Chargers-Jaguars should be relatively entertaining. But those are your matchups in the AFC. The Chiefs will face either the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Chargers, or the Jaguars coming up in the divisional round. Those are the 4 teams they are eligible to face. There is no universe where in the divisional round they face Buffalo or Cincinnati. This was the golden scenario. You're avoiding one of those 2 teams because more than likely, either one of them loses on Wild Card Weekend, which would be insane, and I don't think happens. Or the higher likelihood happens, they face each other in the divisional round, and one of them knocks out the other. So if you're the Chiefs and you're thinking about watching some games this weekend and you just want to keep some thoughts ahead, Dolphins, Ravens, Chargers, and Jags, those are the 4 potential opponents that could be heading to Arrowhead Stadium next weekend, not this coming weekend, but next weekend in the divisional round for the Chiefs in their first playoff matchup will be one of those 4 teams. Not great stuff. It was pretty chalky with the AFC playoff picture. Nothing too dramatic. The Dolphins getting their field goal was kind of a dramatic way. Again, like the Dolphins game ended more dramatically because it took a late drive. That game was tied at 6, all the way late. The Dolphins didn't even take their 9-6 lead till there was 18 seconds left. So like there was drama in that sense, but just again, it wasn't fun. That's my thing with that game. The fun one was Bills-Patriots was a rather entertaining game. It was close. The Patriots put up more of a fight than I expected to. It ended up being a bigger loss, 35-23 for the Bills, even though it looked a lot closer for most of the game. Mac Jones threw 3 interceptions in the contest. But I mean, Nyheim Hines returned the opening kickoff 96 yards. That was great to see. I mean, the Patriots, this game was tied at 14.5. The Patriots led 17-14 before Nyheim Hines returned his second kickoff of the game. He had 2 kickoff returns, touchdowns in the same game to make it 21-17. And then he ran into the fourth quarter 28-17, but early in the fourth, 28-23 before the Bills kind of ended up icing it away after a long play. So, I mean, it was a close game overall. Jags-Titans was fun on Saturday evening. That was a good close game. That had some good moments. And then, of course, again, Bengals-Ravens wasn't that entertaining, but that was due to the fact the Ravens were starting their third-string quarterback. So then we moved to the NFC, where things shook out as expected up top, and then the bottom was very fun. The Eagles beat the Giants because the Giants played Davis Webb for the most part. The Eagles kind of ran away with that one. They secured the number 1 seed. And even if they had lost, it wouldn't have mattered because the Cowboys lost to the Commanders and Sam Howell. The Cowboys lost to the Commanders, and that should never be forgotten. Dallas can try to make up that they didn't care. If anyone say later that they didn't care, Dallas had a chance to get a number 1 seed. It's not like they were watching on the sidelines and knew as they were going that, oh, Philly's winning, so let's just stop playing. No, they lost 26-6 to the Commanders. They got their butts kicked. Dak Prescott had an abysmal game. Dak Prescott was 14-37 for 128 yards and a pick. He did throw a touchdown pass, but still not great. The Cowboys ran for 2.4 yards a carry. They were bad. They weren't good. They played so poorly. The Commanders ran the ball decently well. Not astoundingly so. Sam Howell looked pretty good. There's not a lot to take away from Sam Howell's performance, and that it's hard to with those Week 18s and 1 games. Sam Howell played well enough that if I'm the Commanders, I at least give him more opportunities next year. And I consider, what do we have to lose if we just went with Sam Howell? Retool other parts and say, screw it. Let's stop running this revolving veteran quarterback carousel train. And let's roll out Sam Howell. I don't know. But the Cowboys fell on that one, so that stays the same. The Eagles are the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The Eagles will get the bye, much like the Chiefs are. And the Cowboys finish as the 5th seed, right where they were before things went. The 49ers and Vikings both got big wins. Nothing dramatic about their wins at all. Their games were maybe close for a tiny bit moment in the beginning, but very quickly they ran away with it. So the 49ers will be the number 2 seed in the NFC. The Vikings will be the 3 seed in the NFC. All of that up top kind of sat where we thought it was going to be. Nothing really dramatic about any of those games. The Giants were locked into the 6th seeds. The 6th seed didn't have any drama to it. But then we get to the 7th seed where things were legitimately entertaining. Earlier at 3:25 was the kickoff. We had the matchup between the Seahawks and the Rams. That was our first 7th seed domino that needed to fall. If Seattle won, then the Lions were eliminated, and Sunday Night Football was just if the Packers win, they're in. If the Lions win, they spoil it, and Seattle goes to the playoffs. And the Seahawks about done near screwed up. The Seahawks, entering the fourth quarter, were trailing 16-13. They got a field goal from Jason Myers with 2:19 left in the game to tie things at 16, and we go to overtime. They nearly gapped it away a couple more times before winning on a 32-yard field goal in overtime, 19-16. So with that win for Seattle, the Lions knew before they ever took the field that they were out of the playoffs. They weren't playing. They were done. They were not a playoff team. Wasn't going to happen no matter how hard they tried. They were out of the playoffs. And I saw people, some more associated with Green Bay than anything, but also just a few different NFL people around the Twitterverse and randos as well, kind of commenting that was the reason that they didn't like that the Lions-Packers was Sunday night. They're like, oh, Lions are going to try now. What do they have to play for? To which I and many others said, have you watched Dan Campbell coach a football team? Like, that Lions team is just like, they were going to take pride and play hard just for the opportunity to screw over Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. That was their motivation. Was truly, it was a motivation of, if we aren't going to the dance, neither are you. It was a thought process of, oh, we don't get the new toy, then you don't get the new toy. And that's what they did. The Lions played hard, they took the game seriously, and they beat the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football to send the Packers home, and the Seattle Seahawks go into the playoffs. And the Detroit Lions finished 9-8. They were 1-6. People were calling for Dan Campbell's job. And all the Detroit Lions do, all the Lions do, is finish the year on an 8-2 run. To finish above 500 for the first time in, I don't even, like, I'm gonna finish up. When was the last time the Lions finished above 500? It's been a minute. Like, they were 1-6. Then they beat Green Bay. They beat Chicago. They beat the Giants. They beat Jacksonville. They beat Minnesota. They beat the Jets. They beat the Bears again, and they beat Green Bay. They swept the Packers. Now, this is a fact, and I will give credit where credit's due. This is a fact I learned from Brendan when we were chatting, off the air this morning. The Lions have beaten the Packers about 7 times in 18 years. 4 of those 7 have come in 2 seasons. They've had a pair of seasons where they have swept the Packers, and then outside of that, they barely ever win. And I will say I found this. This is the first time the Lions are above 500 since 2017. When they last swept the Green Bay Packers. 2017, the Lions went 9-7. So for the first time in 5 seasons, the Lions are an above 500 football team. That's awesome. That was great. As someone with like no diehard rooting interest, I didn't really care which side came out. I was semi-rooting for the Lions more than the Packers. Not to be mean, but it's just, listen, I've had people, someone on Twitter or random in my mentions, discuss, why are people loving Dan Campbell so much? Listen, Dan Campbell may not be the full-on should be the solution for the Lions head coach. Maybe he should. There are sometimes things he does that do make me scratch my head. But what I do know about Dan Campbell is he cares about his players and about winning. He takes responsibilities when there were plenty of times the Lions have screwed up. And Dan Campbell's gone to that podium and said, it's on me. I have to be smarter. I have to be a better coach and put my team in a better position to win. I respect any coach that does that. That isn't a hard thing to do. That's coaching 101, but there are coaches that don't do it. There are guys that don't do it right. So I respect that. The other fact is that man coaches hard. He coaches that team hard. Yes, they were 1-6, and that stunk. But they turned it around. They turned it around because they rallied behind Dan Campbell, and they played hard. I don't know if Dan I don't know if Dan Campbell's the solution. I hope the Lions give him every chance to be the solution. The other part is a man that is so winning is so close to being a I have a special place in my heart for guys that are aggressive on 4th downs and really try to win football games rather than lose them. Like, I like playing to win over make the loss hurt less. That's always been my thing here. Y'all have heard me talk about it a bunch. Dan Campbell, 20-16, 4th and 1. He could have kicked the field goal. Gone up by 7, about a minute left. He would have been up by 7. You're giving Aaron Rodgers a minute to go get a touchdown to tie the game. But there are old school coaches who would have said, just take the points, go up 7. So that way, even if they go, then you just go to overtime. And Dan Campbell said, screw that. I can get a yard against the Green Bay Packers and end this game and ice this. And not only did he did it by throwing the football, which is even more impressive. I do on this front want to get something from the text line here from the 316. This is where the Lions should be in the playoffs or the Bucs because they have the better record. I get people's upsetness over a under 500 division champion being in the playoffs. I get it. I get where people come from with that. I truly do. That's the way it goes, though. You win your division, you get into the playoffs. You don't win your division, you don't get into the playoffs. You're reliant on wild card spots. Do I think watching the Bucs in the playoffs is going to be fun? No. The Monday night wild card game, the one that wraps up wild card weekend, is Bucs Cowboys. That game's going to suck. It's going to suck. It's not going to be entertaining, and it's not going to be fun. Do I think it'd be more entertaining to put the Lions in the playoffs? Of course I do, because I think Dan Campbell's entertaining. I think that Lions team is fun. Jamal Williams is my new favorite football player. Jamal Williams is my favorite dude. Gave a heartfelt interview after the game was over, discussed their teams. The Packers let him go after 4 years. They didn't want him back, which is fine. He has no ill will towards the Packers. He understands that the game's a business. He's so thankful to Green Bay for what they did, what they taught him, and showing him how things worked his first 4 years. He then tied in the game against the Packers last night. He tied Barry Sanders' record for most rushing touchdowns in a single season by a Lions player. There's now a line at the top of the franchise for most rushing touchdowns in a single season that has Barry Sanders, one of the greatest of all time, and Jamal Williams. Plus, the dude's just like a big nerd and is into the nerdy crap that I'm into. And so that's a special place in my heart for that. But yeah, would it be more fun to watch the Lions? But that's just it. That's not how it works, guys. That's not how it works. You win your division, you get in. I've seen so many people calling for well, we need to change the rules. We need to change the rules. This is a thing that happens barely ever. There is a bad division every year. And yes, that means a lot of times there's going to be a bad division winner. It is what it is, though. Because more often than not, what happens more often is the division winners are good. And the wild card teams stink. You want to complain about something with the playoffs? You want to complain about something with the playoffs that need to change? Get rid of the 7th wild card. Because both of the 2-7 matchups, Seahawks-Niners and Dolphins-Bills, are probably not going to be competitive. And I am sorry to Dan. I love you, man. You'll hear Dan probably talk about the Seahawks coming up on 580 Sports Talk. That match is probably not going to be that competitive. Because the 49ers run the ball incredibly well, and the Seahawks cannot stop a nosebleed on the ground. If there is a complaint anyone should have about the playoffs, it should not be, 8 and 9 teams in the playoffs and hosting a playoff game. It's not that. It's complaint about the 7 seed. That's where all your complaints should be directed. Those games have never been competitive, and they've never been entertaining. That's your complaint. I get everyone's point. I understand it. And also, I think there's also a level of just people don't want to keep seeing Tom Brady in the playoffs because some people like watching Tom Brady suffer. Raising my hand over here. The fact that Tom Brady finished here with a losing record is awesome. But it is what it is. That's the loss. We got to see the Lions last night, but it was still so incredibly fun watching them play football. That'll do it for this noon hour mic'd up. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, we'll hear from head coach Andy Reid. Time for hour number 2 of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you, riding solo just one more time. Coming up this hour, we're going to preview the national title game coming up tonight. Georgia and TCU are going at it at SoFi Stadium. We'll look at just what each team needs to do to probably get to a win. Also just what's on the line for either two teams to get the win tonight. So we'll see what's going to happen for Georgia and TCU. We got everyone loves the list. Today's list in honor of Jake's travel issues. Worst parts about being on an airplane. We're not talking about, going through the airport. We're talking about when you land. We're talking about when you're physically on the plane in the air. Or grounded. Just need to be physically on the plane. I'll open the door up to if it's while you're on the ground still. But worst part of being on the airplane physically, that's going to be the list today as well. Remember, we will hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes today, as both spoke to the media, as this is the only media obligation for the Chiefs this week. After today, they're dark the rest of the week. So today will be the only day we hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We will then pick up back with our friends at the Kansas City Chiefs coming up next week when they start preparing for the divisional round playoff matchup. We're also going to take a look at KU and K-State on the basketball court. Both got big wins over the weekend. Both are undefeated in Big 12 play. And more importantly, we're going to look at the rise of K-State. How good are they actually? And also the fact that they are 11th in the country. They have entered the polls at 11th. Are the Kansas State Wildcats, their highest ranking since 2013. These cats are very good. We'll also play a little bit of overreaction, proper reaction, and we have a K-State giveaway, ticket giveaway. I got a pair of tickets to K-State and Oklahoma State that's coming up tomorrow night at Bramlage Coliseum. I will let you know when to call in. Not now. But that is coming up later on here this hour. Later on this hour, I will let you know when to call in, and we will give away that pair of K-State tickets for that matchup coming up tomorrow night. A 6 p.m. tip-off tomorrow night at Bramlage Coliseum for K-State and for Oklahoma State. As always, you can join in on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. And then you can also hop in on our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com. Go to Sports on 580. That's our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe. Watch the show. You can jump in the live comment section of that as well. Before I get to the national title game, I do want to discuss our texter friend for 316. Essentially paraphrase, they bring up the comment of the NBA and the NHL do not do divisions for their playoffs. They just have their conferences, and best teams in the conferences get into the dance. Maybe the NFL and MLB should do the same. I'll go back to this, and this is just when I want to wrap up on the NFL playoffs here. I get everyone's point, and I get the idea of best records should get in. I get that concept. I truly do. But also, look at the overall history, not just this season, not just recency bias. Look at the overall overarching history of at least these two leagues that we're discussing here. For the most part, good teams get in, bad teams get left out. Every once in a while, does a team that's less good get in by virtue of winning the division? Sure. It happens. Same thing happens in college basketball in the NCAA tournament. A team steals the automatic qualifying bid. Like, sure, like the AL Central in baseball every year is the weakest division in baseball. Sometimes that winner is not good. Sometimes that winner of the Kansas City Royals win 95 games. That was a great year, by the way. But like think about the Guardians last year. You know, maybe one of the other AL East teams should have got in. Sure. The Guardians also still showed up and also still played well. Like, it is what it is. For the most part, we don't have below 500 winners winning divisions. We don't. Sometimes we do. Yeah. And that is unfortunate. But it's so rare we should not go changing the whole thing because of this idea that we have to make it to where every great team gets in. The NFL playoffs have been this way for, like I said, if you have a complaint with the NFL playoffs, start with the 7 seed. If we want to eliminate the 7 seed and go back to only 2 wildcard teams, then we'll be fine. Because you know when we've had the most lopsided games? It's not been because of a bad division winner. It's usually been because of that 7 seed. I mean, the Saints one year were 7-9. Pardon me, Seahawks were 7-9. They faced the Saints. Seahawks hosted a playoff game. Everyone was like, man, Seahawks shouldn't get in there, 7-9. They won that game and Marshawn Lynch gave us the beast quake. Like, it is what it is. That's my overarching point. That's just my point with that. That's the last thing I'm going to say on it. Texture, I get your point, and this is no, like, I appreciate the comment. I appreciate your point. Your point has validity to it. My big thing is, if we want to think about changing it to where we don't have divisions in the NFL anymore, I'm honestly open to the conversation. But if we're changing the NFL playoffs, we're starting with getting rid of the 7 seed. Then maybe we can go to the discussion about getting rid of divisions and doing just the top teams in each conference, the top 6 in each conference, regardless of division. You want to do that? We can have a conversation. We can. But until we get rid of the 7 seed, I don't want any other conversation. Because if we want to know the real thing ruining the NFL playoffs right now, it's the 7 seed. That is what's watering down the weekend. That is what's making things bad. Like, if we're thinking about it, that's the thing that needs to be going away first. We get rid of the 7, I'm open to other conversations. So that's the last thing I'll put on the playoffs. Texter and everyone else, thank you for your comments, your questions. I feel you. I love the interaction, especially what I did with Jake's gone. I love it even more that we can interact and do it this way because it's even more space for us to have these conversations. So I do appreciate it. Please give me all your questions, your comments, your concerns, all your thoughts. They are always welcome on the program. But to kick off this hour of the show, we have a national title game tonight. The college football champion will be decided at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles I got to give them credit, a very beautiful stadium in LA. Like, say what you want about the teams that play inside it. Say what you want about LA, the city. SoFi's a good looking building. I wish they would use grass, not turf, but that's a complaint I have about like half the teams in the NFL. But overall, beautiful stadium. Great place. It's going to give a good aesthetic and backdrop, in my opinion, to the matchup tonight between Georgia and TCU. This is a game that I think can go a couple of ways. I know around here there might be some Big 12 rooting interest, and I don't blame anybody. I've always been you don't necessarily need to root for the conference guy. I've not been just because someone plays in the Big 12 when it comes to the postseason, I should root for every Big 12 team to play well. I've never been that guy. You know, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to root for Baylor in the postseason just because Baylor's a Big 12 team. I don't care. Same thing for Texas Tech. Texas and Oklahoma are a different thing. It's always just fun to watch them lose. But, you know, I'm not really pulling for TCU tonight because I want the Big 12 to have a national championship. Though I will say, like I mentioned earlier, if TCU can beat Georgia tonight and knock off the defending national champions, TCU would be the first Big 12 champion in the college football playoff era. So since we've been doing this in about 2014, this is the first time a Big 12 team would be the national champion. TCU is already the first Big 12 team to ever win a game in the college football playoff. First one. They would also be the first Big 12 champion, national champion, period, since 2005 when Texas won the national title. So a lot on line here for TCU in the Big 12. It's going to be a tough game for TCU, Georgia's big. They are fast. They are strong. But, I mean, TCU against a big, fast, strong team in Michigan hung a 51 piece on it. Now, that was helped by 2 pick sixes. But if they play at their top level, if they play an A-plus game. I remember we were talking with Paul Meyerberg last week about it. And I'm with Paul. If TCU plays an A game, they can do this. They can win this game. But they can't play less than an A game, in my opinion. Whereas Georgia could probably win this game with about a B-plus game, a B-plus game. Because Georgia's bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. And they got some really fine players on that team. So that's Bennett at quarterback, trying to win back-to-back national titles. That kid trying to cap off 2 great seasons of college football, leading the Georgia Bulldogs. Going from walk-on to back-to-back national champion would be huge. Brock Bowers is one of the greatest weapons in college football. TCU stopping him is not going to be easy. TCU could be without Kendre Miller. We don't know. We won't know more until about kickoff what's going to happen there. Kendre, of course, has had a little bit of extra time with about the week off for the national championship game to get healthy since he got dinged up in that game against Michigan. But also, as important as Kendre Miller is, Amari DeMarcado showed he can carry the ball. He can be a bell cow. So I don't know how much important Kendre Miller is, but Kendre is important to that TCU team. No matter what, I think honestly we're in for probably something more of a shootout. I would like it to be that way. I don't foresee a big blowout for Georgia tonight. I definitely don't foresee TCU blowing out Georgia. Like that, if that happens, that'd be the most surprising result is TCU blowing out Georgia. Georgia blowing at TCU is another surprising result because I just think TCU fights. I think that's going to be the biggest thing and the biggest overall storyline to this game. These are 2 teams led by 2 quarterbacks who are going to scratch and claw and drag their teams to a championship. Like, neither of these teams will go down without a fight, if I can speak English. It's amazing. It's amazing what it's going to be. And we have a text from the 402 that says, what would a win mean for the Big 12? It means everything. Because remember, this is a conference that everyone said, well, the Texas and Oklahoma just fold. Without the Longhorns and the Sooners, you're going to be nothing. You're going to be the 5th best conference. You should be lucky to even exist. You're going to be nothing. You're losing your 2 big bell cows. You're going to be a terrible conference. None of your other teams are good. There was all that slander about the Big 12 and about teams in the Big 12 not named Texas and Oklahoma. And guess who is representing the Big 12 in the national title game? Not Texas, not Oklahoma. TCU. TCU has the chance to be the first Texas-based team to win the national title in the college football playoff era. Beating out Texas A&M. 2 teams that would probably like to feel like that they're superior to TCU. Well, guess what? They're here first. You guys didn't make it here. Now, this means everything to the Big 12. The fact the Big 12 here means everything in and of itself. The fact the Big 12 is represented means something. But if TCU can pull this off, because they're going to put up a fight. And I'm glad so many of you on the YouTube comments, the Big 12 text line, so many of you with the same thought, the TCU is going to fight. And they are. If we've learned anything with this Sonny Dykes team under TCU, they do not go down without a fight. If they're going down, they are going down throwing haymakers off the ropes. They are going to fight, which will make this game entertaining and make this game fun to watch. But if TCU can pull this off, it would be huge. It would be fantastic. Now, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by what they're going to do. I hope TCU keeps it close. We have a text from 785. It says, I'm surprised the spread on FanDuel is only 13.5. Yeah, Georgia's about a 13.5 point favorite. They're a 2-touchdown favorite. And they might cover. At the end of the day, they might cover. I don't know. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 1-score game. Just with the way TCU plays. With the way that they played all season, I wouldn't be surprised. TCU's path to winning this game is it being a shootout, Max Duggan airing the ball out, getting some big plays down the field, and consistently running the football. Because Georgia has some guys who can really rush the passer. Well, you slow down a pass rush a little bit by running the football effectively, so those pass rushes slow up a little bit. TCU has to run the football effectively. They had to make some plays down the field. They cannot turn the ball over. If TCU turns this ball over, it is a problem. And more importantly, defensively, they need to generate turnovers. They need to steal some possessions. That's how you beat a team that's considered much better than you. For Georgia, it is simple. Play Georgia football and play it to a high level, and they probably win this game. But TCU, there's an avenue with which they leave SoFi Stadium tonight as your national champions, which would be monumental for this team. But Georgia, at the same token, Georgia's trying to be the first back-to-back national champion since Alabama in 2011 and 2012 in the waning years of the BCS. We've not had a national champion in over 10, a back-to-back national champion in over 10 years. We've obviously never had it in the college football playoff era. We did that one little run where it went Alabama, Clemson, but none of them won it back-to-back. So Georgia has a little bit of history that they can try and do. No matter what, history is going to be made tonight with either champion. Kirby Smart, if he wins, at 47 years of age, will be the youngest head coach at the time of his second national title, just barely beating Urban Meyer when he was 48. Like, both teams have a lot on the line. There's a level of history to be made with either team. I recommend, if you like football and like a good game, tune in tonight. Should be fun. Like I said, I think this will be a very entertaining game this evening between Georgia and TCU. The game is set to kick off at 6:30 on ESPN. I think it'll be fun. I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to watch every minute of it. We'll recap it tomorrow coming up on Mic'd Up. We'll touch on it a little bit. But no matter what, the fact that Sonny Dykes took this team in TCU that was projected to finish 7th in the Big 12. They were voted to finish 7th in the Big 12. He's taken that team to 12-1. 13-1 at this point, actually. They're 13-1. To 13-1 and in the national title game. It's a storybook season. I hope it can end in the storybook finish that is knocking off the undefeated Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's trying to become the first team to finish 15-0 since LSU back in 2019 when they won their national title. I don't know what will happen. I think it's going to be a fun game, though, and that's what matters most. TCU's got to get a few things to go their way. They're the ones that are going to need the lucky breaks more than Georgia is. But they're also a team capable of getting those lucky breaks and creating those fortunate opportunities. We'll see what it is going forward, but no matter what, should be a fun one coming up tonight on ESPN and at SoFi Stadium. People can't tailgate. I think tailgating's overrated. I'll make that hot take right now. There have been a lot of tweets and responses like, oh my God, I can't tailgate. So go have a beer at a bar. Go do literally anything else. I'm sorry you can't sit in your pick-em-up truck with your tailgate down and have your grill in a parking lot. I'm so sorry. I just had to. I'm going to get my thoughts out there. Tailgating's overrated. I know that is a bad take to have in Chiefs Kingdom, but is what it is. No matter what, should be a fun game tonight, though, between Georgia and TCU. We'll take a timeout. Coming up next, everyone loves a list. Time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up on 580 WIBW. My good man Kyle Manthey coming to help out on this one. Kyle, today's list. Things you hate about being on an airplane. Things you don't like to experience while you're on an airplane. In honor of Jake and his travel issues. I don't know if he's experienced any problems on the airplane. He's had a few issues off them. But in honor of that, we're going to do things that you hate about being on the airplane. Kyle, what is your number 4?
Number 4, annoying thing about being on an airplane, I have being too hot or too cold, or just the temperature adjustments just not working correctly.
I'm funny enough, that is also my number 4, because I've been on far too many planes that I feel very hot and stuffy, and the little air thing they blow on me doesn't help, which then makes me feel nauseous on a plane. Like, I hate it. It's awful. It's terrible. It's not fun. I debated on putting it higher, but because it's not fully often, and sometimes it isn't always prevalent, I put it lower. But yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. Poorly regulated temp sucks. I'm right there with you.
Number 3, kind of more annoying, but waiting after the plane lands and just everybody standing up and just being in a rush to get out. Like, the plane lands, I want to like stretch my back or whatever and stand up and stretch, but everyone is just like standing up. It's like, we're not going anywhere. Just like chill out for a little bit. We'll get there eventually.
Oh, I hate that so. There's reason I expanded this list to be able to, like, when you're grounded. Oh, I hate everyone when it lands just standing up. I hate that whole. It's so annoying. No, I'm right there with you. My number 3. It's not as big of a deal because I'm a short guy. I'm not that tall. I'm only 5'8". No leg room. I know this is probably a more bigger problem for the taller folks of you out there, but still, even I don't have leg room. I hate it. I want room. I don't like not having leg room.
Number 2, annoying passengers, or specifically the person or people next to you just won't stop talking to you. And it's like, it's early or it's late, or you just want to do your own thing and they just won't stop talking to you.
I'm right there with my number 2, chatty seatmates. I hate chatty. I've had a few of them. I know that they're just, trying to do their thing, and they just think, oh, we can pass the time. No, listen, I know I talk for a living. I know I do this for a living. I don't want to talk to people on planes. I don't want to do it. I want to put my headphones in. I want to vibe in my own space. I also hate chatty seatmates. They're awful.
Number 1, I'm right with you on no leg room, and I'll expand on that. Just no personal space, either like the person behind you put their bags up too far, or someone stealing your armrest. Just lack of personal space, lack of space in general on airplane, number 1.
Yeah, the lack of personal space does really suck. My number 1 is simple, and it's the specific reason I expanded this list to include when you're on the ground. The entire deboarding process of being on a plane sucks. I hate everyone standing up and clogging up the aisleways, because then I can't stand up, which, I mean, I wouldn't anyways. I would just sit and chill, but it makes that whole process take forever. Also, the way we deboard planes is stupid. We go front to back. It takes forever. It takes too long. I hate deboarding planes. It is my least favorite part of the entire process, but specifically being physically on an airplane. Lord, do I hate how long deboarding takes. It is very much not fun. That does it. Everyone Loves the List today. Coming up after this time out, we'll hear from Andy Reid. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. I want to respond to some text on the Big Tires text line before we get anything here. First off, everyone's got like more than a few good opinions on worst parts about being on the plane. From the 785, the inability to open window for fresh air. Funny enough, but I mean that's true. Our temperature problem, our fresh air thing. Crying babies. Crying babies aren't fun. However, I try not to judge them too much because it means that their ears are probably popping and it's very uncomfortable. And I know I hate that and it makes me want to cry like a child. So I can't be that mean to them. Plus, my one experience sitting next to a baby on a plane was the nicest and chillest baby in the world. So they get a pass from me. Sitting next to a person who has bad personal hygiene, yes, that's horrible. That stank is awful. And then I haven't heard this second term, and it's my new favorite. Karens, or apparently Kevins. We're using Kevins as the male term now. For at least this texture. That make it miserable for everyone. Yes, other people are awful. That's my worst thing. From the 402, they asked, what about waiting for the plane to take off? That's not a big deal for me. Like, once I get in my seat and I kind of chill, I just vibe. Like, at that point, I'm just probably, like, deep into whatever music portal I'm in at that point. Because, like, my flight plans, because when I worked for KU softball and baseball, that's when I really did travel the most. Once I was on the plane up until we took off, I just had music in and was vibing to that. Once we were in the air, I moved to the what show or book am I a part of to pass my time. So like waiting for the plane to have wasn't a big thing for me. I'm kind of about it. So yeah, it's not great, but we'll see what's going on. Then someone that I have to assume is a very specific comment from the 75, having someone sit next to you and eating stinky jerky all the way from Atlanta to KC. I assume, Texter, that is very specific to you, but I feel bad for you. Bad smelling food I hadn't thought about. I'm also not a big bring a bunch of your own food on the plane. There's not a flight in the world, if food, like full food is not provided, that you need food for. Like, people that like get food from like the airport places to get food from and then bring a whole meal onto the plane, I don't get that. Make time, eat it while you're there. There's no need to bring that on the plane. Because there's no flight, like if it's a long enough where you need a meal, there will be meal service provided on most of these. I know there's exceptions. I know not everything's the same. I'm going with some generalities here. Don't judge me. And smaller flights usually have complimentary drinks and snacks. You don't need extra things. So that's just an overall opinion of mine. I'm not a big bring food on a plane guy. But then again, I treat flights very much as like just the job that you're doing here is get on this to get to a different place. I'm not here for anything else. I'm here to get on a plane and get out. So I'm also not big on like walking around the airports or like I hate long layovers. I try to design my layovers within like a range that I'm not sprinting to a gate and has a buffer zone to like land and get to my new gate, but never long enough where I have to just sit in an airport for forever. Like, I know people are like, oh, I have like, a 4-hour layover. I would hurtle myself off a building. You give me a 4-hour layover, I will want to hurt somebody. Because I want to get to my final destination. So, that's been plain opinions with Fulton Caster. That also been the 402, because I have to expand upon this. They asked me, why do I hate tailgating? Let me clarify. I don't hate tailgating. I don't hate it. I think it's overrated. You want to invite me to a tailgate before a game and I'm in the mood to arrive early and drink some adult beverages and enjoy some food, I'll go. I've done it before. Chiefs Packers, just last season, I went with two of my buddies, and one of my buddies, his parents were doing a tailgate, so we went to that. And then a bunch of other friends who went and weren't like with me and my friends, they were doing their own thing. I went hang out at their tailgate. Like, I'll go to tailgates. You invite me, I'll go. I don't think is an important and integral experience to the football experience. Like, I don't see no tailgating at SoFi and get up in arms like a bunch of people are. Like, who cares? So I wanted to put that clarifier out there. I don't hate tailgating. I think it is overrated. There is a very distinct difference. Like, if you do it, more power to you. You invite me, I'll come. Especially if it's free food and drinks. But I just think it's overrated. To which, text from the 785 who adds, this is from the same person who hates ranch. Yes, ranch is terrible and tailgating's overrated. I understand I'm revoking two big parts of my Midwesterner card here, but it's actually, hold on, it's very similar to my plane take. I'm not at a football game to tailgate. I'm at a football game to go watch a football game. Like, That's what I'm here for. That's the job. That's the business end of this transaction. Just like I'm on a plane to go to a place, so I want to get to that place and get to that part of the experience. I'm not at a football game to tailgate in a parking lot with grills and a bunch of drunk morons around me who are being loud and obnoxious and causing problems. That's not what I'm here for. I am here to go watch football. I mean, if you invite me to a tailgate, I'll probably go, but I don't need it. Like, and that's my point of it being overrated. To a person from the 913, if it's overrated, you're not doing it right. No, it's overrated to me because I don't need it to be a part of my experience. There's so many people in this area who act like it is an integral part to their game day experience, that they have to do it. That you got to have the tailgate. That's the integral part. You have to do it. There are people complaining about the Royals moving downtown because they can't tailgate. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not that important. That's my thing. That's my thing. I'm not telling you guys you can't tailgate. I'm not judging you for doing it. I want you guys to have fun. Truly. If that's what you need, if that's what you guys like to do to have fun, do it. More power to you. That's not the point here. I want to make that up. That's the overall thing why I brought this back up. I want to make it abundantly clear. Have your fun. I'm not judging you for having your fun that way. I'm saying I personally feel it's overrated. I would go to tailgates for Chiefs because it's fun. And I will say the only reason I ever want to go to a Buffalo Bills tailgate is I want to jump through a table with some Bills fans. But that's just the nerdy, youthful pro wrestling fan in me that always thought about jumping and diving through tables. Like, it's cool. But even that, I think, is sometimes a little bit overboard. But I'm not judging you. Y'all can have fun. All of you Chiefs and Royals fans who just want to always do your tailgates and are there like 3 hours early, got your full grills and all that. No, more power to you. Have fun. Enjoy yourselves. That's just not me. That's the overall point. That's just not me. With our tailgating section of the conversation out of the way, though, we will head to Andy Reid, a guy who probably loves a good tailgate because he does love a good cheeseburger. We'll go to Andy Reid. He spoke with the media today, the only media availability of this week. Here's what Big Red had to say when he spoke earlier this afternoon.
Don't have any injuries. I think we came out pretty clean on it. It looks like Frank's, after his MRI, the groin looks like it's more of a mild one, and he should be able to return after a little rest that we have here. We'll give the guys a few days off and then reconvene later in the week and for practice. So anyways, with that, time's yours.
Coach, first of all, and I'll have a follow-up real quick. Just McCole Hardman, just an update on where that sits and how optimistic a couple of weeks from now you are. Yeah, so I thought he might be able to go this past week. That's a hiccup on my end. I mean, he's trying. I mean, he's trying to get this thing right, and it's just a matter of time. So really, day to day. Although he feels better today than he did on Saturday, so we'll just see how it goes during practice. And then just a follow up, I'm not asking you to critique the officials. I know how you don't want to do that, but just it is such a fast game. You had a tackle on Patrick Mahomes where Max Crosby sacked. He had a good grip on the helmet, right? And the helmet's supposed to be part of the face mask. My question would be, do you anticipate there being change next year to, reviewing at least those? If you can't review everything the way we've heard Bill Belichick say, that maybe that there'll be an umbrella of player safety or face mask type of things, are used, that there could be a change in that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, I sit in on a lot of those meetings, so there's always change going to take place. I mean, sometimes it's smaller than other years. But I know they'll go back and look, the league will look at everything and competition committee will look at everything. So they do a pretty good job with all that stuff.
Coach, appreciate the time here. I'm wondering, during this bye week when you're with the team and going through the game plan, are you game planning for multiple teams, or is it one opponent that you guys kind of zero in on? How do you approach that when you kind of are waiting to know?
Yeah, well, you try, you don't know exactly, but a couple of the teams we've played, a couple of teams we haven't. So, we'll try to focus in on the ones we think that we have a chance to play most of all, but also cover all of them. And while we have time I'm saying as a coaching staff, then we'll narrow that down for the players as we get them this week, before we actually know for next week. So, but we'll work on some things that we need work on.
Hey, Coach, similar question to Aaron. I know you've had the bye week a couple times now. In your experience, what's the best way to treat it when it comes to the amount of rest you want when you guys get back in the mix? Just an outlook of your week until Monday.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the trick to it is the balance, and then how the players utilize their free time. So, and coaches for that matter. I mean, we've got to make sure that we keep on top of the scheme stuff too. So we'll see how all that works out. But yeah, that I tell you, that's a trick to it, is to try to keep the balance where the players stay sharp and coaches still can add a couple things into the guys into their mix, and then we go from there.
Hey, Andy, was wondering whether it was a tough decision to activate Butker and have him be your guy on in Las Vegas, or whether that was a kind of a slam dunk, whether Harrison was feeling a lot better than he had been earlier in the week.
Yeah, no, he was great with us communication wise. So just like I'd say the same thing with McCole, has been great with communication. So that ends up being important when guys are banged up a little bit. And so Harrison told us he felt good, and we trusted him with it and went with it.
Hello, Coach. I have two quick questions for you. The first is, how much do you think Patrick's experience in the playoffs will better serve him and the offense? And then, Brad, I'll have a second question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, experience helps. It is single elimination, so everybody's got to be sharp. It's not just Patrick. We've all got to do our job and do it well, knowing what the result is. So, but it doesn't hurt Pat to have the experience that he has. Yeah.
And lastly, Coach, I know you addressed Justin Reed about his comments ahead of the Cincinnati game, but pretty much since that game on, he's probably played his best for the Chiefs so far. I just wonder what you've noticed from him in the second half of the season, and obviously as being a leader for the defense.
Yeah, he's done a nice job in both those areas. I mean, he's worked hard, and it really, I think just being more familiar with the defense helps. I've noticed that with all the veteran guys that come in, just the familiarity of what you're trying to do and get accomplished, I think, is important, and you get that through reps, and normally it's game reps. So when teams are throwing you little different things that you've got to make some quick decisions on, with the options that you have within the scheme. So I think he's done a nice job there.
Hey, Coach, obviously this was a very unusual circumstance with the no contest between the Bills and the Bengals. And reportedly, the Chiefs abstained from voting on the proposal that ended up working it out. How did you feel about that, as far as the equity across all the teams, and you're getting the number one seed, but potentially having to play Buffalo at a neutral site down the road?
Yeah, listen, I was so tunneled in on the Raiders at that time when all this was going on. I know Clark and Mark and Brett, I have full trust in them and what they were doing with it. My main focus was trying to make sure we stayed focused on that game on a short week. And so I didn't spend a lot of time worrying about where we were playing or not playing down the road. And we've got to work on getting there. And that was more of a job for the people I mentioned there to do. And I thought they did a good job with it. So.
Hey, Andy, you were talking earlier about the sort of sense of balance when you have the bye week, and how I think the implied point there is also the trust in the players. And I wonder, if that's something by now that is overtly stated, do you have to talk about that? How much it speaks to the culture you've developed, that however you were able to handle that now with trust.
Yeah, I think the guys, they understand all that. I mean, we had a meeting this morning, team meeting this morning, and we covered what what we're going to try to do, attempt going forward here. So with practices and meetings and all that. So they're well aware of it, and they understand the magnitude of where they sit right now and the opportunity that they have. There's not a lot of teams playing right now. So it's a great opportunity, and you want to take full advantage of that the best you can.
That was head coach Andy Reid speaking earlier to the media today. Earning that bye week, so important. And you always got to appreciate a Big Red, just taking things simple, taking it one step at a time, taking it day by day, and not trying to get wrapped up in who you're going to play or what this. Just when the football game ahead of you is what it is. Make it work in light of crazy situations. Well, take a time out here on Mike Dip. When we come back, we are going to give away a pair of K-State tickets. I'll let you know what call number you need to be, and we need to call, and we got that coming up next after this timeout. On Mike Dip. It is time, as we're back in on Mic'd Up here, for our K-State ticket giveaway. This one's going to be very simple and quick. So you got to be quick on the buzzer here, folks. In honor of Marquise Noel being named the Big 12 Player of the Week, in honor of him leading the team in scoring 3 straight games, the team being 3-0 in Big 12 play, and the fact that Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel's numbers add up to this, I'm looking for caller number 3. Caller number 3, 785-272-9429. Be quick on that buzzer here, guys. Caller number 3, you will win a pair of K-State basketball tickets to the game tomorrow night at Bramlage Coliseum against Oklahoma State. The game's at 6 o'clock. These are physical tickets. We would like you to come pick them up at the stadium. At the station, not stadium. We're a station, not a stadium. It'd be crazy if we were a stadium. Pick them up here at the station. They are a pair of tickets. good seats. We have nothing but good seats to give away here on our Sports on 580 channels. Here on My Tip, we give away nothing but good seats. Call number 3-785-272-9429. Because Marquise Noel is on a heater. He is officially your Big 12 Player of the Week. Keontae Johnson is your Big 12 newcomer of the week. They have won the weekly honors in the Big 12 this week. Marquise Noel has gone in his last 3 games in conference play 23-10, 36-9, 32-14. Marquise Noel, a guy that I will openly admit I have been hard on so much. I questioned him so much last year. I don't know what Jerome Tang has done to really get through to him. I don't know what Jerome Tang has done coaching-wise to access this level of great play out of Marquise Noel, but it has been insane, and it has been a stunner. We're going to break down his game and K-State's ascent even more coming up to kick off the 2 o'clock hour coming up next. But Marquise Noel, man, he is a guy that I didn't know how great he would play this year. I knew it was the right choice to try and keep him around. Jerome Tang said there's about 2 players, really, he wanted back from the K-State team last year, outside of, obviously Nigel Pack would have been one of those guys as well. But Marquise Noel and Ish Massoud were those 2 holdovers. They were the 2 real guys who got kept playing, and they are doing their jobs and playing so incredibly well and playing so within the system that Jerome Tang has created, which has led this K-State team to be 14-1, has led this K-State team to be 3-0. It's impressive. It's led them to being the 11th ranked team in the country, to being one of the top 3 teams in the Big 12. There are 3 undefeated teams in the conference. Kansas surprises no one, Kansas State, and Iowa State. It's amazing that K-State's here. This is faster than I think anyone would have predicted. It's cool. And thanks to our gracious friends here on Mic'd Up, you got a chance to go see them coming up tomorrow night at Bramlage Coliseum. That'll do it for this hour of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Coming up the 2 o'clock hour, we're from Patrick Mahomes, but we'll kick it off with looking at K-State on the hardwood. Welcome into the final hour of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you for our final hour of today's show. I want to thank you all for being a part of what now I'm going to call the final show of my solo reign. Can't confirm Jake should be fully back tomorrow. I've been wrong before. Mainly talking about today. But talking with Jake and his travel plans, Jake should be back on the show tomorrow. So he'll be back at full strength, the full crew coming up on tomorrow's show. My reign of terror will benevolently, I can't say that word, come to an end. I will accept the transition of power. I will give Jake back the keys to the car. And will have enjoyed my entire time getting to do this fun little 7-show stretch of just getting to do kind of whatever the heck I felt like. It was great. It was fun. Also very stressful and a lot of work. A lot more work on my shoulders with Jake gone. And that was the not fun part. But as I said last week, and I'll say it again, I want to thank you all for being a part of it and being so supportive with all your kind words of this little string of having to do things a bit differently here on Mic'd Up over the last 7 incarnations. But we back to normal coming up on Tuesday's edition of the program. Like I said, no Chiefs game to preview this week and no more Chiefs audio this week. We're from Patrick Mahomes coming up later on this hour. But after today, the Chiefs are going dark. They are taking a full week to themselves to rest, relax, recuperate, and get set for the divisional round of the playoffs coming up next week. So this week, Jake and I are just going to take some time, look at some of the factors for the Chiefs team this coming up through this week, and what factors into their ability to win the Super Bowl and make a deep run in the playoffs. We'll take a little bit more of a bird's eye view of the Chiefs situation rather than the narrow focus we sometimes have to do on game week. So that's what we'll do the rest of this week with the Chiefs going dark. The rest of this week with the fact that they have a bye and they get some much needed and well-deserved rest as we head into the NFL playoffs. As always, if you want to be a part of the show this hour to wrap things up, you can hop in on the Bigger Tires text line, 785-272-9232. 9429 is that text line number. Or, of course, we are live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. Go to SportsOn 580 is our YouTube channel. Again, subscribe if you haven't. We would appreciate it. You can join in and watch the live stream and hop in on the live comment section of that live stream as well. Just a pair of ways for you to get involved on the wrapping up portion of today's edition of Mic'd Up. Coming up this hour, of course, like I said, we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. We will play a little overreaction, proper reaction, as we love to do on this little fallout of an NFL Sunday. But we're going to expand it a little bit. It won't just be an NFL version of overreaction, proper reaction coming up today on Mic'd Up. But we begin with what has rapidly become the most fun story, at least in these parts when it comes to college basketball. KU and Kansas State continued their winning ways over the weekend. We're going to start with the Kansas Jayhawks, much like we did last time, to just kind of move it out of the way. There's no respect to my beloved Kansas Jayhawks, but their game against West Virginia was one of their easiest in quite some time. Since KU has come back from the Bahamas and their loss to Tennessee when they lost by 14 points, Kansas has been on a heater. They won by double-digit scores over everyone through Indiana, even beating Harvard by 14 points. Then they entered Big 12 play where things got a bit tougher. They had the close 69-67 win over Oklahoma State that included a 15-point comeback. They're down 15 points at half. They had the tight win over Texas Tech that includes some last-second heroics. But then they played West Virginia, and it was a 76-62 victory for the Jayhawks that was honestly pretty easy the entire way. KU led by 7.5 and then kind of increased the lead going into the second half. West Virginia kept it close early on, kind of had a bit of a lead to start the game before Kansas really started to turn it on as of late. All 5 scores for KU in double figures, 12 from Kevin McCullough, 11 from Dwan Harris, 14 from Jalen Wilson and KJ Adams, as KJ Adams was in double-digit scoring again. And Grady Dick led the way for KU scores with 16 points as he made 4 3-pointers in the contest. KU shooting 42% from the floor, really locking in defensively, limiting West Virginia. A West Virginia team that can usually shoot it pretty well from outside was only 4 of 20 from 3-point range, whereas KU started off very hot from 3. That led off to their big leads. Kansas get the win. They keep rolling. They are 14-1. They are 3-0 in the conference, win of 3 teams at that 3-0 mark. And conference play, just a good standard win for the Jayhawks. They'll be back in action on Tuesday evening at Allen Fieldhouse tomorrow night. They play at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. They will take on the Oklahoma Sooners. That's KU. No big new developments out of the Jayhawks. No big news when it comes to health-wise. MJ Rice has been dealing with some minor injuries, a little bit of getting dinged up just a little bit. He is slowly working his way back into the fold. That's why he's not played the last few games. Bill Self trying to just ease him back into things here. That's the biggest news for KU when it comes to any rotation pieces to their team as well. But no big news when it comes to KU. So we move, of course, to the team that I've spent a lot more time talking about than I expected this year. And honestly, I ain't mad about it. Your Kansas State Wildcats. Ladies and gentlemen, fans of the Wildcat family, members of the Wildcat family, your Cats are 14-1. They are 3-0 in conference play. They knocked off Baylor on Saturday night, 97-95 in overtime. Their second overtime game in 3 Big 12 games. It's already been a test in the Big 12 for Kansas State. They come off a game where they scored 116 points against Texas and just dropped a casual 86 piece in regulation against Baylor. Ended up scoring them 11-9 in the extra period. Ish Massoud, it's the game winner to put Kansas ahead. It was also just some great news for Ish Massoud, a guy who has played well at times, came in, I think, a bit more hype than expected for Kansas State. And he played well. 13 points off the bench. Made all of his free throws. Was 3 of 4 from outside with 3 3-pointers, including that big one to win the game. It was a great performance by Ish Massoud. Great work off the bench. Keontae Johnson, another big game. He scored 24 points. He had 9 rebounds. But I talked about it a little bit to end last hour. Marquise Noel, man. Marquise Noel, for the 3rd consecutive game, led K-State in scoring. He has back-to-back 30-point games. He had 36 against Texas. He has 32 against Baylor. He had 14 assists in Big 12 play alone. And I want to make sure I'm doing this math right because my math skills are not the best. I will always openly admit that. Marquise Noel in 3 Big 12 games has almost 100 points. Marquise Noel in 3 Big 12 games has 91 points. He has 33 assists in 3 games. 10, 9, 14. Marquise Noel this year, and I'll make sure this math is right as well, has 6 games with double-digit assists. He is second in the conference in assists is Marquise Noel at 8.9 per game. Like, it's not just Marquise's scoring. He's averaging 17 points a game at this point. It's not just that for me with Marquise. It's the assist. It's the sharing the ball. It's being a point guard. It's being more of a true facilitating point because as of right now, he's being entrusted with so much for this Kansas State offense to get them into their motions, get them into their actions, do things to try and keep this team at where they need to be. That's what he's being asked to do. And what has Marquise Noel done? He has just done everything asked and more. He, as I said when I talked about him last week, what I've loved seeing out of what Jerome Tang has done, I even talked about this with Kels Robinette a little bit last Wednesday. It's Jerome Tang is getting Marquise Noel to play under controlled chaos. Marquise Noel is still a guy that's going to attack. He's going to heave up some deep threes. He's going to heave up some step backs that when they're released make you scratch your head, and then they go in and you're so impressed. But they're not wild shots out of structure as much anymore. It is controlled chaos. It is Jerome Tang has gotten Marquise Noel to understand playing within the system. And I try not to speak ill of Bruce Weber. I know things did not end great for K-State and Bruce Weber. He did do some good things for that team, and there are some good parts about Bruce as the guy. But for whatever it was, there was something he was not getting out of Marquise Noel last season. It was this kind of the same problem he had at Arkansas Little Rock, which was kind of being a guy that could be a little bit wild and erratic and would just do things that just aren't necessary. You know, my biggest point to this and pointing the difference, near the end of regulation, Marquise Noel got the ball, was dribbling near half court as time was going down. I put this tweet out on Twitter after the shot was over. I expected Marquise to pull up from half court, pull up from the logo and try and drain a 3. Now, granted, earlier in the game, he shot a logo 3 and made it, so it's not the worst idea. But that's what I expected because that's just, it's what he did before. It's what he's done in these moments. He did it at Iowa State just last year to try and get the win, and it didn't work. I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability to do it, but it's not the optimal shot to drain all that time than just pull it from 35. But what did Marquise do instead? He dribbled around, tried to create space. When he couldn't, he drove down the lane, went for a better shot at the rim, and nearly got it to go in. And then they almost got the tip in, but couldn't get that as well. It's just playing more intelligently and more within the system. I don't know what Jerome Tang's done to get to this point, but it's impressive. And that's what it circles back to as K-State moves to the number 11 team in the country this week. They are 11th in the AP poll. There's a chance, folks, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we have 2 games in between it. If K-State can beat Oklahoma State and beat TCU, folks, we're looking at a top 10 matchup between KU and K-State inside Bramlage on January 17th. We're staring down the barrel of that right now. We're marching towards that reality. Now, it's not guaranteed. Oklahoma State, very tough opponent. They played KU hard. You never know when K-State's offense might cool off. K-State's offense is hot right now. But you never know when that cool off may come. And then they have a date at TCU in Fort Worth, and that's just not going to be easy. That'll be a 1 o'clock tip coming up on this Saturday. That's not easy. So I'm not going to say, we're guaranteeing it or really look that far ahead. We still have, we have some time before that matchup. We have some time for that matchup a week from tomorrow. But at the same token, we're staring it down because K-State is playing better than I think anyone could have ever anticipated. If I told you before the year that K-State at this point, January 9th, they'd be 14-1, they'd be 3-0 in the conference, you'd call me crazy. You said I was insane. Or you would think I'm one of the more optimistic people on the planet. But no, they're playing well. And this isn't when K-State was winning earlier, my big thing, even when they were like 9-1, 8-1, 10-1, even when they entered conference play at 11-1, I said, that's nice, but it was not really a hard battle to 11-1. I mean, their hardest tough in the non-con were really LSU and Butler and maybe Wichita State. They're probably the three hardest teams they played, and I actually played them all three in a row. But outside of that, UTRGV, not great. Cal, real bad. Speaking of Cal, I just have to know. The Cal Golden Bears have picked up wins. Good for the Cal Golden Bears. They now have 3 wins on the season. They have beaten UT Arlington, Colorado, and Stanford. Oh, Colorado. Oh, what are we doing? But Cal, not a great team. Kansas City, not great. Rhode Island, not that amazing. Nevada is pretty good, but still not elite. Abilene Christian, Incarnate Word, Nebraska, Radford, not high-level teams. So my thing coming into conference play was, okay, K-State, great. You're 11-1. That's awesome, but doesn't mean anything. I wasn't ready to buy my K-State stock yet. I was still kind of hesitant. And then they've done this to start Big 12 play. And to me, it has solidified that this team's legit. Like I'm willing to say it. I'm willing to buy the stock. I'm willing to drink I'm willing to drink the Jerome Tang Kool-Aid. I guess you can just say, it sounds creepy to say drink the Tang, but there is a drink called Tang. So it's there, but it feels creepy. So I'm going to keep just saying my Jerome Tang Kool-Aid because it feels really creepy to say drink the Tang. That's really weird. It fits, but I'm not going that far. Either way, I'm all bought in on this K-State team. I am bought in on them being one of the best teams in the Big 12. I'll be one of the at least the upper parts. I don't know if I want to go to best teams, because the Big 12 is so tough. But K-State finishing in the top half of the Big 12, I don't think that's crazy. They're in the top third right now through 3 games. They're one of only 3 teams left at 3-0. One of those is Kansas. They're right now lockstep with the Jayhawks. Now, Jackson faced a lot tougher competition to get to their 14-1 and their 3-0. But still, K-State's right there. And now they head into the gauntlet. They are now heading deep into that gauntlet of Big 12 play. We have a text from the 785 that does say 6 of the next 10 K-State opponents are against 6 of the next 10 K-State games are against ranked opponents. Yeah, that's the Big 12, baby. That's welcome to the Big 12. I've talked about at length how tough this conference is going to be and how tough this conference is, how it is unequivocally the best conference in the Big 12. A conference in the country is the Big 12, to put my words in the right order. Undoubtedly, it's the best one, which does mean every single game is a fight. Bad losses don't exist in this conference. I want to make that clear above all else. Discussing K-State here. Let's say they lose to Oklahoma State tomorrow night. Do not hang your heads. If your thought losing to Oklahoma State is like, oh man, we lost to the Cowboys. They're only 9-6. Oh man, we lost to Oklahoma State. Guys, this is the team that was up by 15 points on KU, and KU had a scratch and claw to beat this team. This is a team, Texas, the game against Texas was unfortunate when they lost by 10, but they beat West Virginia, is their conference win. This, even if, their record doesn't show it, this is a hard-fought, well-coached Oklahoma State team. So even if that loss comes tomorrow, which I'm not saying it will, we'll get to that game tomorrow. But even if so, there's no such thing as a bad loss in this conference. It doesn't exist. A bad loss in the Big 12 is not a thing because of where all these teams are. The Big 12 now is, we can't no longer say everyone's in the top 37. It is now every team is in the top 41, as Texas Tech has fallen to 41st in the KenPom. But K-State, they're 26th in KenPom. Oklahoma State, that team you're playing tomorrow night, Cats, is 28th in KenPom. A bad loss doesn't exist. And I think that's what's so quintessential. So yeah, you got a grinder. You're Oklahoma State, then TCU and Kansas. That's your next 3 games. Texas Tech, not going to be easy when you have them to come to town. Then you got to go to Iowa State. That's not fun. Then you're going to Kansas. Then you have at Kansas versus Texas versus TCU in a 3-game stretch at the end of this month going into February. That's not easy. This entire conference season is not going to be easy. But I've never been more confident that these Wildcats are up for a challenge, and even more confident Jerome Tang was the perfect hire. He is bought in. I've always said it, and I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. Changing the culture and creating a winning culture is the first hurdle and the most important hurdle, in my opinion, for any team, any coach coming into a team to try and rebuild the program, especially in college sports. You have to fix the culture and make the culture what you want it to be. I've never seen a coach this quickly get all this buy-in. These K-State players, man, they are bought in. They play together. They play hard. They play intelligently for the most part. There's still some moves when sometimes they do things to make you scratch your head a bit. And you see Jerome Tang scratching his head on the sideline sometimes. But he is bought in. He knows how to build a program. You can tell he learned a lot from Scott Drew, and he was the right man for the job. Plus, he's getting buy-in from the students in the K-State community. I would not be surprised if Bramlage is pretty well filled tomorrow night. I wouldn't be surprised. And think about it, when's the last time Bramlage was filled for a game not involving KU there? And that's not me trying to interject some KU stuff to this. This is just, think about it. Think about how often K-State games without a marquee opponent filled up Bramlage. It's not often. And yet it's going to be filled to the brim tomorrow night. Because everyone's bought into this program. It's amazing. Everyone has bought into this program, and they've bought into this program because it's been being built in a collective way, and Jerome Tang is putting in the work on the ground. We also made the comment, you can see it all the time, doing the social media stuff, doing stuff with the students, doing stuff with the K-State campus. Jerome Tang is ingraining himself into this K-State community, which I think is why so many people like him so much. It's why I've really, he's grown on me so early. It's not just that I think he's a great coach. He's a great man. And it's always easier to get behind a coach if they're a great human being. I think that's what Jerome Tang is. I don't know what the ceiling for K-State is. I don't know. Because what I thought this ceiling was has been just shattered. Because I thought that the ceiling on this K-State team was maybe 7 to 8 wins in the Big 12. They'll probably be like a 7 to an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament. They'll get bounced first round. Maybe they'll make a second round if they get lucky. But then they'll get bounced by a 1 or a 2 seed and go home. Y'all, last bracketology, K-State was a 4 seed. I don't know if that's what they're going to be when this season ends, but the perceptions about what the limits are on this K-State team this year and even in the coming years, I think is all changing. It helps to have Keontae Johnson. I can't deny that. I know that's a big part that I don't even think gets talked about enough. It helps that you have a player who was an SEC preseason player of the year, and his story continues to be great. I don't know. We never knew if he was going to play basketball again. And now Keontae is lighting it up in the Big 12. It's awesome. I love to see it. Marquise Noel is playing out of his mind right now. It's so great to see what he's doing. And I love it. I love what I'm seeing. Because as I say it all the time, I'm not a K-State fan. I wouldn't call myself that. I never grew up that way. I'm a KU guy. But K-State winning is good for business, and I've never had any ill will against them. I like it when teams are competitive because it makes things more fun. And if KU's chief rival in K-State's competitive now, that makes it more fun. It makes it more entertaining. It brings life back into all of this in this area. It's great. I love to see it, and man, I don't know what the end of the year is going to look like for K-State, but I don't know if we can really predict what it's going to be anymore because they keep shattering expectations. I'm hoping they get another win tomorrow night against Oklahoma State. Who knows when it'll come? This conference is a gauntlet. At some point, you might hit a skid. Every team does it now and then. It is tough because this conference is just brutal. But no matter what, I thought K-State might not have a chance to really try and punch with the big boys. But they are one of the big boys that are doing the punching now, and it's great to see. We'll take a time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, we'll play a little overreaction, underreaction, coming up on Mic'd Up. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. I bring back in my good man Kyle Mann to help me out as we play a little overreaction, proper reaction, as we do most Monday afternoons here on Mic'd Up. Kyle, I'm going to start. We usually hold this to the NFL, but in my best Jake impersonation, I'm breaking the rules because why not? Overreaction and proper reaction. K-State's going to finish top 3 in the Big 12 at the end of the season.
I'm going to say that's a proper reaction. And I think that's obviously getting off to a 3-0 start with getting some of the road games out of the way early. That's helpful.
Yeah.
But also, I think the teams are just going to be so like tightly packed together at the end of this gauntlet that there could be like 5 teams tied for those top 3 spots. Honestly,
it could.
They just look so good right now.
They do. And then on the concept of a bunch of teams being tied up top, K-State's beaten 3 teams so far. So technically tiebreakers, K-State would be more of the number 3 than anybody else. But I'm right there with you. I'm trying not to get too caught up in the moment and too much of a prisoner of the moment. We definitely try not to be that. Not even just here on Mic'd Up, just the whole Sports on 580 team. We try not to be prisoners of the moment people. But I don't know how you can watch K-State play basketball, watch this team play against the competition they've played, and not go, man, this is one of the best teams in the conference. They're so good right now. We're going to see more, but like I said, week from tomorrow, we get K-State KU round 1 this year at Bramlage. I am so excited for that game because that game is going to be awesome. But yeah, I'm right there with it. I think it's the proper reaction. K-State might finish top 3 in the conference, which is nowhere near what anyone thought this was going to be when this year started. Nowhere close. It's amazing.
My overreaction, proper reaction for you. Is it an overreaction to say that this is the most impressive season of quarterbacking for Patrick Mahomes from a statistical and team record standpoint? You talked about being prisoner of the moment. I think it probably would be a little bit. I still think his 2018 season is just so good. But obviously breaking like the combined scrimmage yards record and doing it all without Tyreek Hill is wildly impressive.
Yeah, I'm with you. Man, because you make a good point. you never want to be prisoners of the moment. You want to try and, keep an eye out. And and not doing it without Tyreek Hill is important. His 2018 stats, he had more touchdowns. Obviously, that was his 50 touchdown season. 50 touchdowns to 12 picks. He still had 41 touchdowns this year to lead the NFL. It was his second year. He is now in 2 seasons. And not 2 seasons, twice in, 5 seasons as a starting quarterback. He's now twice led the NFL in touchdown passes. This is his first time leading the NFL in passing yards at 5,250. He had 5,097 in that 2018 campaign. Now, granted, the 17th game helps. Without the 17th game, he would have been a lot lower than that. I think he was still technically even lower than his 5,097 coming into this week. He didn't throw for a bunch, but I get it. His QBR is 3 points lower this year than it was in that 2018 season. But honestly, I think it's a proper reaction to say this is the better year. Because think about everything around it. Like 2018, he had Tyreek Hill. He had Travis Kelce. They were playing well. Like there were so many things. And also to a level of that, no one knew what Mahomes was going to be. I talk all the time. There's always, when you have that level of unknown, it adds an element to something. Mahomes with a average to maybe slightly above average receiver, like Juju has done great this year. But everybody behind Juju, not that great. MVS, not that much. McCole Hardman took him a while to find any type of a rhythm. Sky Moore has never really been integrated into the team a lot. It's really been Juju and Travis, and then some work with the backs. Think about everything surrounding it and what he's had to do. I think proper reaction is this is the best season he's ever had. Which is why if he doesn't win an MVP, it's a travesty. This is not even being a KC homer. This is look at every team. Look at everything surrounding every team. I get it. Jalen Hurts is the number 1 seed. The Eagles, 2 of their losses came without him, and they do a lot different without him. I get it. Jalen Hurts also got a bunch of all-stars thrown onto his team in the offseason. He has the best offensive line in football. He has a great running game to support him. He has one of the best defenses in football. He has possibly the best wide receiver pair in football with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I get all the great things that young man did. Jalen Hurts had a great season. Patrick Mahomes is your most valuable player. Because without Mahomes and the things he does, the Chiefs wouldn't even close to where they are. So I think it's proper to say this is the best season he's had. Would you be on that route of it being the proper choice here?
See, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I don't want to discount his 2018 season just because it was
That was
new.
such a good year, man.
Just because he's new, I don't want to knock that against him. You could say being 14 wins this year as opposed to only 12 that year.
Yeah.
If you factor in team success,
but his defense was way worse that year too.
That is also true. But in 2018, his adjusted yards gained per attempt was 9.6, and he's never broken 9 any other year, which is fine. You don't have to break 9 yards per pass attempt.
It was almost 10.
It's just so much higher than any other year, and 50 touchdowns.
I'm with you. I get that point because also, like I said, it's his highest. It's the only time his QBR has been in the 80s. He led the league in QBR that year. Also, just for my Mahomes MVP argument, Patrick Mahomes leading the NFL in QBR again. Just leading the NFL in QBR, yards per game, touchdown percentage, touchdowns, passing yards, 14-3, number 1 seed. He did it all with, a hodgepodge of wide receivers.
Fully in agreement. No argument here. Proper reaction. He should be the MVP this
year.
Yeah,
I very much. But no, Kyle, I get your point on trying to still keep the idea of how great that 2018 season was. Because I think you make a good point. We need to not lose sight of how great that 2018 season was. That'll do it for overreaction, proper reaction here on Mic'd Up. We're going to take a timeout. Coming up next, we're from quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Wrapping up today's show here as we head into the finishing of this Victory Monday edition of the program as the Chiefs are in the number 1 seed and they get a well-deserved week off. Jake will be back with me tomorrow, as I've been saying. So this should surely be the end of my authoritarian regime. It was fun while it lasted. Don't cry because it's over. Be happy that it ever happened and be happy with the memories that we made along the way. But to wrap up today's show, quarterback Patrick Mahomes met with the media as this was the Chiefs' only media availability this week. Here's what QB1 had to say earlier today.
Hey, Patrick. By now you've seen plenty of Andy and how he operates, and I'm curious what you think the key to all the success he's had after a bye week has been. Obviously, the playoff bye week is a different thing, but I think some things are probably kind of consistent with that.
Yeah, I think he has a great balance of the amount of time he gives guys off and the amount he gets guys in there to get them moving and prepare for that next week. And then obviously the coaches do a great job of game planning. I'm sure this week they'll game plan like 3 or 4 different teams and try to get a good game plan to the guys early in the week so they can execute it at a high level. And then he goes out there and we do what we usually do, man. And so he just has a great feel for the amount of time he gives guys off and the amount of time he has them in the building.
Hey, appreciate the time here. Among the many numbers we've been seeing is most yards ever for a quarterback. I'm just wondering if you have a favorite play from the regular season. I know the playoffs coming up, whatever, but bookending this regular season, if you have a favorite play that stands out to you.
Yeah, my favorite play probably will be the one that Jet down in Denver, just because it was one where I legit did not think I was throwing the ball at all. I was just trying to get the ball in my hands as quickly as possible, and then seeing it on the TV copy of it and seeing how it looked sweet. So that was probably my favorite play of this season so far.
Patrick, this isn't the first time you've had a playoff bye. I just was curious, how's the best way for you to spend it? I know that the guys will get a day off, but you personally, how do you feel like you most benefit from this week here?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is obviously you don't know for sure who you're going to play. So what I'll do is I'll watch like a game or two of each team that we have a possibility of playing kind of each day, just kind of get a general sense of the team without being too much of a deep dive. Luckily, 2 of the teams we've already played this year, so I have a general sense of them already. But you do that, I can make sure you stay working out, stay moving around, not just sit on the couch all week. Then when we get ready to go next week, I just try to be prepared and ready to roll. So it's a little bit of both. You get off your feet and you rest, but you still move around enough that your body's in a good shape for whenever you get to the first playoff game for us.
Patrick, with so many young guys, so many new receivers, of course, I just wonder from your perspective, what you feel like you learned the most about your teammates throughout the course of the season that you think will either prepare you or give you a better edge in the postseason?
Well, I think the way we play football games, I know the guys are willing to fight to the end. I mean, we had a lot of close games this year where we had to step up and guys had to step up in big moments. And even though it doesn't make it easy as a fan watching it, I think it shows that we have guys that will compete at the end of the games and make these plays to win football games. And so you're going to need that in the playoffs. I mean, playoff games, I mean, they're rarely more than even one score game. It always comes down to the very end. And luckily that we've been in those games, and we have guys that we trust that can go out there and make plays when they count.
Brad, and I'll have a follow-up. Patrick, stat came out today. You're the oldest starting quarterback from the AFC. You're not old, but you're the senior member. I'm wondering, not just, I know you don't feel old at your age, but your life's changed, and it is kind of a different era for you, right? It's not new anymore for you. I'm wondering how it feels right now, if it feels different because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's changed. I have 2 kids now. I'm married. I'm kind of an old soul. So I am kind of the oldest. I am literally the oldest quarterback in the AFC. It speaks to the talent that we have in the AFC. And the guys that I'm looking around at are going to be there for a long time. So I'll be the old head in the AFC for a while now. And I'll try to use that experience to my advantage.
And then the other one is, I'm curious how you feel you're playing. There was maybe some people nitpicking, right? Wins are all that matters. You're the 1 seed. A lot of people talking about the close wins, maybe not covering spreads. Just consider, what do you consider the mindset of this team and how well you guys are playing right now headed into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think we're playing well, man. I mean, defense has stepped up, played really good these last few weeks. Offensively, we've had good spurts. Obviously, we feel like we can play even better. I mean, I always feel like we can play better as an offense, but we guys, it's coming from everywhere. Kadarius is having big games. Sky's getting involved. Obviously Travis. We have guys everywhere getting involved, making plays happen. And so, like you said, a win's a win. We're worried about winning, not covering spreads. So we'll try to keep that momentum rolling and get a win this week or this next week, actually.
Patrick, just looking back in retrospect over this regular season, how do you think the new group of receivers surrounding you sort of changed the way you operated this year?
Yeah, I think it just changed me in a sense that you get a lot of different personalities, and you have to kind of motivate guys in different types of ways and keep guys going with the culture and how we do things here and see the bigger picture. And so for us, I think the biggest thing for me and becoming a better leader was I had to just learn that. I've been with guys I've been with my entire career, and I knew them personally. And so building those relationships with guys off the field and on the field, it helped me become a better leader and a better quarterback every day.
Hey, Patrick, I know this is kind of a secondary concern because you're trying to win a Super Bowl, but I was just wondering what another MVP award would mean to you if you get that. And Brad, I'll have a second question as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the MVP award is a special award that if you get it, I mean, you'll cherish that for the rest of your life, and I will for sure. It's something that I think you look back at more at the end of the season or at the end of your career, and you think about those great times that you had. I mean, it's a trophy that symbolizes the team that was around you, and so you think about those memories you have with those guys. Now you went to battle with them, and we're able to win a lot of football games. And so, like you said, I mean, we're focused on the Super Bowl right now and trying to get there and win it. But obviously, it'll still be a big moment in my life that I'll be able to forever remember.
Yeah, would you maybe have a better appreciation for this one than the last one, given maybe you understand how difficult it is now?
Yeah, no, I definitely joke. I've joked with guys about it before, and I think winning the MVP or winning the Super Bowl again, I'll have a greater appreciation for it. I've been through the trials and the struggles of losing. And that first year, my first year starting, it was fun. I didn't know what was happening. I was just throwing the ball around, and you win the MVP, and I'm like, oh, this is what we do every year. I mean, we win MVPs, we get to the AFC Championship games and win Super Bowls. And now that I've been in the struggle of obviously not winning the MVP, but losing the AFC Championship games, losing Super Bowls, it builds a greater appreciation for the grind and how you have to come every single day to work not knowing that you're going to be at the top at the end of the season. And so we have a mindset that we're going to try to go and win that Super Bowl again. And that award and the MVP award both would be appreciated way more if I was able to get those.
Hey, yeah, Patrick, I had the same question I asked you just about Coach Reed as well, which is, could you sense whether it be excitement, motivation, knowing that you guys were going to have to be different this year, and just how you saw him approach this year?
I mean, obviously, he approaches every year with the mindset of how can we make every person on the team better. But I think he's built this culture. I mean, regardless, I mean, he knows how to get the best out of every single person in this building. That's why I wasn't worried at the beginning of the year if we were going to be good. And I think I told all y'all, I said, I mean, I've seen Coach Reed go an entire season without throwing a touchdown to a receiver and still winning like 11 games, man. I mean, he knows how to win football games. He knows how to set a culture and get the best out of every single person on his team. And so I knew if I just did what he said and I got the guys to follow along with me, that we were going to win a lot of football games. And now we just want to keep building and try to find a way to get to the Super Bowl.
Hey, and two questions if you don't mind, Brad. But first, Patrick, kind of like Adam asked, you did get the NFL record for total offense in a season this year. Don't things like that still give you a kick? And did you hear from Drew Brees or anybody else about that?
I haven't talked to Drew about it yet. But yeah, it's obviously cool. I got the extra game, so until a couple more seasons are played with that 17th game, I guess I'll have that record. But at the same time, that's stuff you appreciate after your career is over. I mean, it's stuff you think about after the season, and you look back on and think about how cool that was. But when you're in season, man, you're just so focused on the next game and the next opponent that you have to just kind of let that stuff kind of go by.
And I know you said after the game Saturday that, the number one seed situation is kind of weird. Now you know that if you and Buffalo make it to the AFC Championship game, they'll be on a neutral field. Was that resolution, you think, fair for you? And, what would be the thoughts of playing a game like that in a neutral site?
Yeah, I mean, nothing was going to be fair for anybody, I don't think. I mean, it's such a situation that we never encountered before. But at the end of the day, man, I was so happy that DeMar was doing better, and that's the most important stuff. And so him doing better and him being in a better spot, we were ready to do whatever scenario was going to happen. And so if that was neutral site, if that was going there, whatever it was, man, we were just ready to go out there and play. But we have to win our first game first, and so we'll just worry about whoever we play in that first round or first round for us.
That was Patrick Mahomes speaking earlier today with the media. And speaking of Damar Hamlin, that situation, just speaking of the bye week and whatnot, Damar Hamlin got released from the Cincinnati Medical Center hospital today. Flown back to Buffalo. He is now at a hospital in Buffalo, still going through his next steps. But Damar is on a very much recovery back. He's apparently having a normal diet of food and liquids. He's doing physical therapy. He's up and around. There's also a report that came out that apparently when Nyheim Hines returned to the kickoff, the first opening 96-yard kickoff, Damar Hamlin set off some alarms at the UCMC Medical Center because he was jumping around so much and so excited that people were wondering what was going on, and it was just Damar excited for his team. So more great news coming out of the Damar Hamlin situation. We love it. We love to see it. It's fantastic. It's so great to see. And as always, I'm so happy when I can talk about that situation. It has moved into fully positive territory. So that's the list update into Damar Hamlin. But to what Mahomes said when regarding the bye week, I think he was right in that there was no fair option. And the Chiefs, I don't think really have anything to complain about because they moved into having controlling their own destiny for this bye week that they now have. And the price to pay for that is that if you play the Bills, that's going to be a neutral site game. I think that's truly the fairest option. The team that kind of got the short end of the stick was Cincinnati. That was going to happen to somebody. It's happened to them. They've been able to avoid most of the worst parts of it, but we'll try and see what's going on going forward. But I think Mahomes put it best in that situation with how unprecedented it was, with how we really didn't know what was happening with any of it. It was a situation to where nothing was going to be perfect. There was no guarantee of, what you would call fair in that situation, but you just got to do what you're going to do. You control what you can control and you go on from there. For the Chiefs, they did that. They won their game against the Raiders on Saturday, left it fairly healthy. Now they can sit, they can rest up over this bye week. They'll play their divisional opponent at home at Arrowhead Stadium. If they play the Bills in the championship weekend the week after, they'll figure out the neutral site option, wherever that may be. If they play the Bengals or anybody else, then that game will be played at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. We'll see what happens when it comes to it. But I think Patrick Mahomes had the right idea. Control what you can control. The situation was unprecedented. We didn't know what was going to happen. But overall, you just figure it out and you make it work along the way. We'll take one final time out here on Mic'd Up. Coming up next, we'll finish off the show with the mic drop. It is time for the mic drop here to wrap up another edition of Mic'd Up on 580 WIBW. Truly, my last one in church by myself. Jake is back from his vacation. He got some travel stuff sorted out. I had to get back in a little bit later than expected, but Jake should be back with me tomorrow. So it'll be Jake and I, full crew, as normal, Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton in its entirety coming up on tomorrow's show. But to wrap up the show today, I just got to speak a little bit more on K-State basketball, man, which feels weird. As a KU guy, it feels weird to spend so much time giving these glowing endorsements of K-State. As I've always said, there's only one team I truly hate, and that's Missouri. That's the only team in professional or college sports I hate. I will never say nice things about that university. Ain't going to happen. Never will. Never, ever, ever in the history of the universe, I will say with guarantee, I will ever say anything nice about Missouri. K-State's different. And what they're doing right now is impressive. Marquise Noel is playing at an all Big 12 caliber level. Same with Keontae Johnson. They're playing so amazingly. K-State is at the top of the conference, which is so unexpected and something we never saw. These are per different reports here. This is per ESPN stats and info. Kansas State is the first team to move from unranked to number 11 or higher in a single week's jump. So unranked one week, number 11 or better the next. They're the first team to ever do that this late in the season, since this poll went to top 25 teams. Since the AP poll extended to 25 teams, no one's made this big of a jump in 1 week from unranked to number 11 or higher, ever. It's impressive. What Jerome Tang's doing is amazing. And these cats are for real, man. I don't know where the road is going to be when this season ends, but all I know is they for sure probably finished in 10th in the Big 12 like they were expected to. They are shocking a lot of people right now, and good for them, good for Jerome Tang, and good for these kids who are playing their hearts out. They'll do it for Mic'd Up today. Coming up next here on 580 WIBW, 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan.